Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Katie Poser. I'm the Outreach Librarian for the NOAA Central Library, and I'm very happy to bring you this seminar today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Xiaofang Bonnie Zhu to introduce our presentation today.
Thank you so much, Katie. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to a very exciting presentation brought to you by the AAPI Speaker Series. The series is hosted by the AAPI ERG and NOAA Central Library, which highlights the contribution of the AAPI NOAA personnel and their support of the NOAA missions of science, service, and stewardship. If you're interested in the future in speaking as part of this series, please contact Verlene Francisco at NOAA.gov. So just a little bit introduction of AAPI ERG. So AAPI stands for Asian American Pacific Islanders. We are relatively young, about 3-4 years old, and we engage in encourage and cultivate DEIA throughout NOAA by leveraging our diverse skills, talents, background, and lived experience in recruiting, retaining, and supporting the professional development of all underrepresented employee with an emphasis on employees of AAPI origin or descent. So we have 4 active subcommittees: communication, education, outreach, membership, and professional development. I'm a co-lead of professional development subcommittee. So here there's some information about our latest newsletter and also the Google site. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to turn to the speaker of our presentation, Monica Bozeman from National Weather Service. Monica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bonnie. All right, well, I will go ahead and introduce everyone. You may have seen the flyer and all of their faces. And as Bonnie said, especially with our Weather Service AI language translation project, we love to celebrate all the various cultures in the Weather Service. And in particular, because the AAPI seminar series, I'm bringing to you today a couple of our team members that are of Asian American and Pacific Islander descent. So who we're going to have today, in addition to myself as the AI language translation lead in the Weather Service, you're also going to see Feng from the Office of Central Processing, who also works with me in my office. I'm in Central Processing as well. Jane Allen, who's a meteorologist at the Pago American Samoa Forecast Office. Nhan from a hydrologist at the North Central River Forecast Center. Bonnie, who you just saw, is a physical scientist and outreach co-lead with NESDIS and the Satellite Analysis Branch. So we are very happy to speak to you today and give you a little overview about the language translation work that we're doing in the Weather Service, a couple of translation challenges we've run into, outreach that we've done, and having our translators do a quick panel session before we take your questions at the end about what our project is up to. So let's see, I can advance the slides here. Okay, so starting out real quick, we have been translating since around 2021. However, we know that sometimes, unfortunately, things happen that gets a lot of attention and causes a lot of upheaval and angst about things that are happening in the world. So unfortunately, sometimes bad things have to happen for things to change or changes to happen. And unfortunately, I have 2 examples here where that has happened in the past. Most recently, in September of 2021 in New York City, a few folks of Asian descent perished in the floodwaters of the remnants of Hurricane Ida, who were all of Asian descent. And then I don't know if all of them just didn't know English, didn't have access to weather information, but that tragedy was very, very unfortunate. In addition, in 2013, in Oklahoma City, you'll see the picture of the family here. The entire family perished. There was a Hispanic family. They understood that there was a tornado event going on in their area, so they appropriately hid and tried to shelter from the storm. However, they weren't aware that in addition to that, there was flooding happening in the area. And so they perished because they died in a storm drain and got swept away in the floodwaters. So very unfortunate. Since the Ida event, the New York Attorney General sent a letter to the Weather Service calling for increased language accessibility in weather alerts and warnings. So just some background on the events that took place to garner attention for the need for translation. So we'll move on from here. And so if we were to start this as a research project, you have to figure out where the people live, who is your audience. So as we look across the country, we analyzed the 2019 census data. We wanted to get a picture of what the country looked like before COVID. And so each dot here represents 150 people for the various languages listed in that table in the lower left-hand side of the chart. So we have 12 language groupings, and included in that is about 3 or so other groupings, which include many languages underneath that other type of grouping. So that way it gave us a chance to look and see where those people with limited English proficiency live. And we're defining limited English proficiency as those ages 5 or older who reported speaking English less than very well. Not that have some English proficiency, but just maybe have a little bit, or those that have none at all. So that's our target audience here. And we found out after we analyzed the census data, it's about 25 million people, which is a lot higher than I thought it was going to be, unfortunately. So that's 25 million people that potentially aren't receiving the weather watches and warnings that are being distributed by the National Weather Service, and people who may not be staying safe whenever severe weather is occurring. So we definitely have our work cut out for us in reaching those people. And then this is just a zoom in, since we're on the AAPI speaker series. I grabbed individually each of the languages. So the blue is Chinese, the brown is Vietnamese, the kind of turquoisey color is Korean, the purple color is Tagalog, and then the greenish color at the upper right-hand side is the other Asian and Pacific Islander languages. So a lot of them living in California, Seattle, Washington State area. And then, of course, up the 95 corridor, Northeast corridor. So that's the target audience for these particular languages. So trying to get these translations across the country is a challenge in itself. But now you know kind of where all of these folks live according to the 2019 census data. So from here, I'm sure you're wondering how the Weather Service did translations before we've had the AI, before I get into all the nitty-gritty details. So Weather Service has 2 teams that translate for Spanish. They have a short-range team, which is called the Multimedia Assistance in Spanish group. They'll translate warnings. They'll translate Facebook posts for the offices across the country. There's also the Spanish outreach team, which does more long-range translations for public outreach information, infographics. The Weather Prediction Center has a daily forecast chart that you can see in the middle of the slide, and that gets translated into Spanish. So a lot of Spanish so far. The San Juan Forecast Office has been translating manually for 30 years. Into Spanish. We also have Spanish and English wireless emergency alert, or WIA messages. And then also auto posts that go to Twitter or X as well. And then from Jane's office in Pago Pago, they also will post some Samoan to their Facebook or Instagram social media pages. So a lot of Spanish, just a few of the other languages. Not too much research or providing of anything else besides Spanish for the most part. And a lot of this is manual, and it's hard to replicate and scale. So that was part of our challenge to meet the cadence of the Weather Service. We churn out products about every 6 hours or so for 122 forecast offices across the country. So using technology is kind of something we needed to do in order to get this out on a timely fashion and to the most amount of people possible. So, as I mentioned, we had a lot of skill and employees that could provide in Spanish. But when you get to anything besides Spanish, it was very hard to find folks who are bilingual, had enough bandwidth in their day to be willing to do translations for their native language or their home language. Weather Service had not translated before in these other languages for the most part. So we don't have an English and Chinese, for example, parallel corpus to pull from to train an AI model. So what do you do? So we are utilizing Lilt Linguists. Lilt is the company that we use that runs the AI models and has their own interface that the translators that you see on the screen work in. And so it's an ABC methodology for unresourced languages. So our balanced diet is taking a picture, grabbing a few weather products from all across the country, all different climates, different hazards across the country. So we could get the model trained on tornado, on flooding, lightning safety, heat safety, all of those different types of hazards across the country. And then the multilingual glossary is basically a list of word overrides that we prefer to use. So that way the model should always get those right. Sometimes they're technical terms. Sometimes it's just this is the preferred way we like to say something. And then the bread and butter of the AI is on the far right side, the adaptive neural machine translation. And so to ensure that we have very high accuracy, we use a human in the loop methodology of training the AI. So the folks you see here are the folks training the AI model. They also have day jobs, so they are not there looking at all the translations in real time every day. But periodically they'll go in and train and check on a couple of products as they go. And they also get assigned special projects for translation, usually outreach information, an example. And Lilt has a patented model retraining methodology, and that's part of why we chose them. So as Lilt learns the NWS specialized terms and language, it becomes very specialized in our domain and how we speak, because there are certain nuances in the way we say things. In addition, we also use those Lilt translators that are certified by the American Translators Association and additional translators from across the globe to help us make sure that the models are saying what we want them to say. So here is a snapshot of what the translation GUI looks like with the human in the loop training. So you'll notice that the top box, the English is on the top. The NMT is the neural machine translation. That's the AI suggestion is in that bottom row in the purple is where they start with the word of what it's looking at. And in the middle, the human is working and translating. So you'll notice in sentence number 13, for a Spanish example from a Hurricane Center product, is formation chance was suggested a translation of oportunidad, but we in the Weather Service in Spanish prefer the word probabilidad. So we continue to train and it pops up again and as we go through the product. But by the time we get to sentence 17, we've told it, this is how we like to translate just a few times. So by the time we get to sentence number 17, it's figured that out. That's that patented real-time training. So now it's like, okay, I know you like probabilidad, so that's what I'm going to suggest to you. So it's looking at how have you trained it previously? Is this a sentence I've seen before? And if it is, and it's based off of something that a human has already translated for me, I'm going to use that suggestion or that 100% match sentence. And then if it's not something I've seen before, then the NMT will generate a suggestion. And that's kind of how that works. So where can you find the NWS AI translations? So all the offices or weather forecast offices in the blue shading where we have AI translations today. Now, most of those are in Spanish. We have 3 offices that are doing Chinese right now. And I think by the end of the month, by the end of the month, we will have 7 offices translating in Vietnamese. We're kicking off a new pilot, and you'll hear from Nhan in a few minutes about how that's going. And then the other exciting thing is that this year is the first hurricane season that the National Hurricane Center is fully using the AI from our team to translate and produce the Spanish tropical weather outlook, all the hurricane products, automatically without having to touch it, because our teams trained it starting this year. So we're very excited about that. So other locations that we're trying to get to, when we analyze the census data, you'll see that little tiny census map that I showed you earlier. These were the offices that, when I did an analysis, flagged in the top 10 of for all of the languages in the 12 language groupings. So if I add the Los Angeles office, for example, yes, they may only have Spanish today, but once we've trained an AI model and we are confident that it works pretty well, all I got to do is turn it on really quickly for having Spanish and Tagalog, for example, and they're a gateway office for 11 languages as shown in the table. So we're continuing to expand, doing some background research right now. But the hope is to get every office translating in Spanish, and then the ones that need it for their demographic of their area to translate in the other languages. And I've also listed the other languages we're trying to get to within the next 5 years. The latest model coming online soon will be French in July. And then from there, continuing down the list that I have at the bottom. So we'll move on from here. So the way that we can share these with the world, because disseminating them across our traditional channels is a little bit difficult because a lot of the language characters are non-ASCII characters. What does that mean? So in Spanish, you would have the tilde over the N. That's not a regular character as far as computers associate it to be. So for example, Chinese characters are not in that ASCII data set. So one of the best ways we can share it with everyone is put it on a website. So this is our new translation website where we display the translated products and services from the Weather Service that the AI has generated. And you'll notice on the screen that there are some blue words. So there are multiple dialects in every single language. So our goal is to get a universally understood version of whatever language we're translating in. Sometimes that's hard. Most of the time that's hard, rather. So the blue words, they'll make a pop-up box that will show alternate words that are also valid for that particular word that we chose. So that way the different dialects are represented and show like, here's the other valid words for what this says. And it also is an option for how we can show a definition of the way the Weather Service is explaining a certain thing, where we may not have room to put that in the actual text products themselves. The website is also mobile friendly. We also include, and I'll show you in a couple screenshots in the next couple slides, we have outreach information, infographics, we have a hazards map that shows across the country what kind of hazards and things are happening. So I will move on from here. Yep, here we go. Here's the hazards map. We've got fronts, we've got the radar on there, and you can get a 7-day forecast. And that's in all the languages that we support in the AI. And we're kind of pioneering some of this. So it's been a fun ride so far. All right, so here's the infographics as well in the different languages. We invite you to go to the website. www.weather.gov/translate is the homepage, and you can learn about the different types of weather hazards in your language. The whole page will flip its navigation and the wording into whatever language you choose. And we know that most of the information that people trust may not be from us. So if you see an infographic you like, or you learn something neat about one of the weather hazards that you want to share on your social media, we would really appreciate that. And if you'd like to use the hashtag NWS Translate so we can kind of see how that starts trending, or incorporate this information into any visuals in your outreach or educational materials, we would completely love that. as well. And we've also added the Hurricane Preparedness Week information in the different languages. So part of the 7 offices I mentioned for Vietnamese, they're along the Gulf Coast. So we made sure to have the Vietnamese translations for the hurricane preparedness, since the Gulf Coast does get pretty hard hit many years. So moving on from here. So another way that we get the translations to the public is we have strategic partnerships. In New York City, we have a partnership with the New York City Emergency Management Office. They include in some of their notification emails a link back to that website I just showed you that shows up in their Notify NYC alerting that you do have to sign up for, but we have noticed an uptick in the analytics of the folks that are visiting our page from the New York City office. So that's been a great partnership. And as you can see in the demographics on the left-hand side, there's over 300,000 Chinese folks in that area. So they're doing both Spanish and Chinese links to the alerts. So we're very excited by that partnership. We're also looking for other organizations that may also want to partner with us, link back to the website, or if there's any outreach information they want from us that we can translate. We are looking for those strategic partnerships and organizations. So if you know of one that you think would be interested or you're interested, come find me, send me an email, let me know. All right, moving on. So future direction and exploration. Trying to do a deeper dive into the census data to break those 12 language groups down into the more individual languages, figure out what else is in those other groups, be creative about reaching the LEP communities with more graphics. We know not everyone is literate in their language, so probably having some audio recordings of the products that we translate, making more infographics. And then we also know that just because you're in the US doesn't mean that everyone uses the traditional social media methods that the Weather Service outreaches to. So not everyone uses Facebook Messenger and Instagram. The immigrants that are coming into our country, they use WhatsApp or Telegram or some of the other ones. So maybe exploring other types of messenger apps or social media to see if we can break through with some of those groups and give them that preparedness information. We're also preparing for multilingual WIA messages. There's an IPAWS change that will be happening relatively soon from the FCC ruling about the multilingual alerts. So the way to do that is to get messages ready in that particular format that they need. So that way we can be ready when those systematic changes happen. And also the Weather Service is going through a re-engineering of our own main website. So the things we learn about doing translations, we will be included and incorporated into that new version of weather.gov. So we're excited for all of those things. So now let's switch gears from all the programmatic stuff, and we're going to switch you over to a cultural crash course and describing a couple of translation troubles. So I'll switch it over. I have a couple more slides, and I'm switching it over to the translators. So universally through some of the languages that we're translating in, these are a couple of the troubles that the AI models are having, either based off of Weather Service, the way we speak, or meteorology in general. In meteorology, a trough is an area of low pressure that drives all the weather. And unfortunately, the AI keeps thinking that that is a farm trough that animals eat or drink from. So clearly that's not the right translation of that. So we have to fix that every time. In addition, we have small craft advisories, which really is watch out if you're driving a small boat or a small watercraft. And the AI keeps thinking that those are small pieces of art instead of small boats. So we have to train those as well. But that's just a couple of examples of some of the funny things that we see in the AI model. And I'll keep moving on for time's sake. So some other translation troubles when we translate outreach information. Sometimes I know we like to use phrases like stay tuned or keep an eye out. those don't necessarily translate well. So I've got an example of something we've had to translate recently. Other problems that we have is temperature units. The rest of the world uses Celsius and the US uses Fahrenheit. So to a foreigner, that may confuse them because 50 degrees Fahrenheit and 50 degrees Celsius are two very different things. So we sometimes have to put the units of temperature measurement in what we're translating. Same thing for units of measurement, metric versus standard, same kind of situation. And then continuing that education, because in theory, this may be the first time that someone who doesn't speak English is actually learning about the Weather Service and our products and all the weather hazards. So explaining to them in NWS speak what watches and warnings, advisories, and statements are and what those differences are. Because for some languages, when they're not trained properly, the models at first think that they can use the same word for watches and warnings, and that doesn't go over well. So we have to take very special care in making sure that those words are correct. So other things we've dealt with before is categorical translations. For example, the SPC convective outlook rankings. A best practice we've adopted is to use with the levels of like 1 through 5 and show out of the top level. So in this case, 5, using more plain language. So the convective outlook, for example, is translated as severe weather outlook. And we also have that on the hazards map page that I showed you all earlier in the screenshots in the slides. So those are some other the troubles that we've had before. In addition, these are some hazard and weather phenomena that other cultures may not understand or are just really difficult to explain when you have very few words to work with. The unifier for all of the languages we found is that they don't understand tornadoes. For a lot of the cultures where they came from a warm climate, they just may not have the words for cold or winter weather. And then with the eclipse happening recently, some folks are just not educated about auroras and other types of space weather. Nhan, I know you had a great story about an aurora earlier. Aurora and the eclipse, I think. I can't hear you, unfortunately, so hopefully we get that worked out.
Can
There
you
we
hear
go.
me now?
Yes.
So a friend was telling us that with all the lights that we saw at night, she didn't see it, but she was told that the sun exploded, and that's what caused all of that. And I had to tell her, no, the sun didn't explode. I had to break it down to very, very small things, terminologies to explain it to her, and I can see that she was glossing over. So bottom line, I told her, like, no, the sun didn't explode. It's just solar flare, and that's what caused the light. Just, simplifying it enough for her to understand that we're not in danger because the sun exploded.
Right. So some very basic concepts, just a lot of them don't understand, or it's the first time they're being exposed to it. So we have to help do that outreach for them. All right, so Nhan, going back to you for Vietnamese, let me know when you need to flip slides and I can do that for you. There you go. Oh, too far. There you go.
So with the AI on the left there, you can see that, like, you go your way, I go my way. It's translated to the same thing as sugar you go, sugar me go. Two very different way of saying things, and sugar versus way or road, it just translates to the same thing. So I have to be very cautious about what makes sense or not. And then there's a lot of accents and different regional terminologies within Vietnamese. So if we use the term airplane, depends on if you talk to a northern person, they call it a flying boat. But if it's like the southern people would say it's a flying machine. So sometimes you're like, okay, flying boat, why is there a flying boat in the sky? And if it's a southern person that doesn't quite get that's what the northern person is referring to as an airplane, it gets complicated. And in AI, the lilt translate, most of the times the people that translate for lilt is northern accent. So they would use terminologies that the rest of the country might not understand, and a lot of the adaptation to the commoner terminology in the US for Vietnamese people is that we call it a flying machine and not a flying boat. So I have to try and figure out what they mean and then use it as like a more of a common term that people understand. And for most of the people that live in the state, they drive cars or relate to cars, but the translators that most of them reside in Vietnam, they drive motorcycles and bicycles. So oftentimes when you say, brake your car or take your foot off of the brake pedal of your car, it doesn't translate well because it said squeeze the pedal, on your bicycle or motorcycles versus braking it. So there are things that I have to actually Google the right term to make sure that it translates well. You can go to the next slide. And when I was translating the word like sprinkles lightly, it doesn't translate because one, you're thinking of sprinkling for your cupcakes, but then in Vietnamese, the Google Translate comes out as you're watering your plants. You're sprinkling water over your plants. It has nothing to do with weather terminology. It has to do with watering your plant. And some of the funny terms is like secure objects outside. It translates to protect all objects outside, or target, meaning like you're guarding somebody. As a security guard, you need to guard them. Clear brush away from your home. It translates to delete your toothbrush or hand brush. They don't understand that brush is some of the ways we say, bushes around the house. So it would say that delete your toothbrush or hand brush. And as I was reading through all of this, I have to read the English and then I have to read the Vietnamese and then back and forth. I was like, wait a minute, it doesn't make sense. And terms like window of concern, it translates to be careful with that window. It doesn't mean it's a time frame we need to watch out for. And high profile vehicles translate to luxury or important vehicles, like vehicles of dignitaries, not a high center of gravity vehicle, like an RV and stuff. And then days in Vietnamese are numbered. So day 2, 3, 4, you can see in the purple, pink there, it's numbered. And so when a product comes out, days 2 to 7, and then you say Wednesday to Monday, and Monday to Saturday, it doesn't translate at all. And I was trying to understand it, and I had to run over to the weather side and ask them, what is your intention on saying this? Because it would translate out day 4 to day 2, and then day 2 to day 7. It just keep on throwing numbers in there, and it does not make sense at all.
I feel bad for you sometimes, Nhan. I know you've had a quote unquote fun time trying to translate those. So we appreciate all the work there.
Yeah.
Let me
And
flip
then
for
you can go to the next slide.
There you go.
Okay. And like things Vietnamese don't understand, like tornado is very rare. But we know the term water spout, but it's called dragon spout or dragon faucet. So when we see them, my dad talks about it all the time, that he said, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I saw a dragon spout. And it's a story like in this cartoon here in Raya, there's a dragon, we say that it creates rain. And after it rains, the dragon has to replenish its water. So that's why you see the dragon spout comes up, because the dragon is refueling its water. So it's a lucky thing to see. It's not something that you run away and hide from. It's lucky to see it. If the dragon doesn't see you, it could harm you, but you can see, you can stand there and watch if you want to, but it's not something you should run and hide. So it's something, like cultural differences, I guess. Because like I said, tornadoes are very rare. And there are no mobile homes in Vietnam, but they're very familiar with boat homes or houseboats, because some people do live on boat houses and they live off of their boats. So the term mobile homes doesn't connect to the translator that are trying to translate for Americans that live, the Vietnamese Americans that live here. So oftentimes I have to try and make sure that, okay, this is a mobile home versus like how the AI translating based on the words that it scraped from the internet, that it's relates to houseboat. And the difference is when translating is that there are Vietnamese that have lack English understanding that live here in the U.S. And then still there are some of those that don't have the scientific knowledge to understand weather or larger words in English. And then there are those that are translating for AI products that live in Vietnam that doesn't understand winter or tornadoes. So there's kind of a disconnect between what the AI is using, what we're trying to say, and I have to try and be the kind of like in between and trying to translate it in a way that it would work for the Vietnamese that live here in the US.
Thank you, Nhan. All right, we're going to move on to Jane for Samoan.
Hi, everyone. So, the big challenge for the AI project with trying to do the translation, there's a lot of homophones, homographs, and homonyms in the language. And so, the content of using the word, you have to really pay attention to how you're using the terms. So, for example, you're welcome, as in you put those two words together when you translate it, it doesn't make any sense. So really, there's no way of saying you're welcome in Samoan, which is really hard. It's the same with the word never. So there's no proper term in translating the word never, but it's kind of like a slang where you just say le kai kai, which it's that's more like the common language or the language that the kids speak. But in terms of like when you're speaking properly, there's nothing. Some of the meteorological terms that we use and we try to translate, like front, there's no term. It's like having to explain the definition of it. But the literal meaning of it, when just the one word front, it's like in front of the house or going to the front side of a building or something. And then it also means embarrassment. So depending on the content and how you use it, I think the AI translations, it's hard for it to pick, okay, which one is it that we're going to use? Highs or high pressures, low pressures, those terms are, it can mean two different things. Like high can be, okay, it's hot, the temperature, or like you're climbing high on a mountain or a hill, or lows, which is low pressures, or it's cool, or you go at a lower elevation. These are some of the terms that I just picked out. Some of them are common. And so, for example, with the rain and showers, you can say timu, which is rain, and then showers is timu when it's all coming down. But shower also means, when you go to take a bath, and it has a different translation for it. The survey that I had to translate with using agree, disagree, and all of that, same idea. Geolocation, place location is just one word to use. No, for another one that's listed there, but we can't really have geolocation. Okay, what is that? It makes it even harder. Okay, geolocation, place, location, all the same, one term used. Not much selection there. Next slide, please. So when we go out to do our outreaches with the community, There's a lot of efforts put into it just to organize it and make sure that everything is planned out. Uh, for example, if we go to the village, we have to go through the chief council. That includes all the chiefs inside the village. And so it's through them that we organize it with, and then continue on to, if it's a church, we have to go to the church officials, government officials, same thing, private organizations. If we decide to go, sometimes we work with our emergency managers because there are local connection to the local government, and because we are a federal agency, um, that is like our connection with the local government. And so many times they would have to organize a lot of the outreaches, but at the same time too, it's like, okay, we want to connect with, the schools. It's a little, I mean, for the schools, a little bit better. It's easier because then we can just reach out to the Department of Education, and then, we can plan whatever the outreaches that we need to do. Um, some of the terms that becomes problematic are the winter terms. As Nhan has mentioned in the Vietnamese language, it's the same with us here, Samoans. Winter terms are hard, mainly because we don't experience it here. We don't ever get snow or, you know, blizzards. um, so it becomes very hard. And then we use just one term, one common term that can explain what's going on winter wise. For example, if the cold is malulu or ice, with ice and snow, you can use the same word, but it can mean different things. So it becomes difficult there. Um, like what I have there, if you ask a Samoan, what is a nor'easter? They have no clue what that is. And I even struggle with it. Like, what do I say? What's the translation for that? Um, what is dust storms? What is brisk wind? What is a radar? These are all the things that we struggle with trying to translate. And I think we're going to need a much bigger help and bigger audience from our older generation. But at the same time, I feel like even the older generation don't have any specific translations for these terms. So
Sure.
it's, yeah, it's a struggle. But
Okay, we're gonna
some
have to
of the
keep going for time, so we'll keep
oh,
going after this. I'm so sorry.
okay. And some of the best practices that we use are listed there. The main thing for us is connect with our communities to tell the truth and just be humble in, our approach. Use a lot of visuals as well, just so that they see the picture and understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. All right, Feng and Bonnie, you're up for Chinese.
Okay, thanks for Ronnie put this great slide here. Understanding Chinese diaspora. I don't want to get to detail. You can see obviously this map shows everything. You can see the distribution of all those overseas Chinese distribution or where the locations. Here are some numbers from United Nations by 2021, and the right hand side the map really show the path or trajectory of those immigrants where they are from. Okay, next slide. For this Chinese translate inside, I think I don't want to talk too many because in the main slides talked by Monica already, some of them are being covered, but I just want to pick one of them. That's called the difference between the statement or how we translate it. This one really need meteorological forecast knowledges because the meaning behind it is same as advisory, but just the timing because that's advisory for just valid for 30 minutes to 2 hours. So we have to add something to make that meaningful. So we translate that to short-term advisories. So again, for others like the shelter, they translate to the refugee camp. Though No, that's not really the meaning of that. So we just based on the whole context, we translate that to the safe place to make more sense. Also, the when we see the temperature like highs in the 80s, they think that's a time. So we tell them no, it's temperature, it's the number of temperature, not the time in 1980s stuff. So for those slogans like weather ready nation is too short. We have to expand that one. So the translation may looks like wobbles, but that's really me makes sense. So we translate be well prepared and ready to deal with all kinds of weathers. So that in this translation, people really know what these slogans want them to do. And for those, at least some things of Chinese are not accustomed to. There's no time zone here, and Monica already mentioned, in the temperature, the unit is, it's really we use Fahrenheit and they use Celsius, so we have to specify that clearly. So this is what's the unit over here. Also, we also see in the rainfall they use the millimeter instead of inches. So we may tell them how to convert that in later. And also the wind force, they don't use actual speed, they use the wind force scales. So they still low, okay, no, wind scale so generates only 3 or 4, but if it's like 8, that's up to the Gale scale, then that will be a warning started. Okay. Again, tornadoes not quite often see, and over the Pacific they use typhoon rather than in Atlantic we use hurricanes. But we need to tell them that's the same thing, but just different name. Next slide. Okay. Here I want to give some insights from our Chinese outreach work in the Greater Washington D.C. area. We started this in earlier this year on Monica, Bonnie, Lin, and me. We try to do some outreach work. You can see at least some of the outreach activity we have joined. We ask COA to circulate a newsletter in their email to let people know this service available and experiment site is website is available, and ask them to give us feedback by click on that links. And also we give a virtual seminar to Howard County Chinese School parents. And we in just a week ago, we went to a Howard County AAPI festival with handout flights. And last Saturday, I went to the Hope Chinese School College Park campus and also give them flyers and talk about our services. We got some feedbacks. So the people, the first feedback is really obvious. I know people right now, they see their weather information all from smartphones. That's from smartphone app. It's not from NWS. It's a private sector. So we tell them there is a weather.gov, not only weather.com. So when we give the seminar to Harvard County Chinese school parents, they start to know, there's a weather.gov. So from there, we then tell them from weather.gov, then you go further to translate. That's all, AI translation services. And we got feedback from them. They want us to enhance this translation website, so we add a function of map click. And we keep getting the feedback. They want to have a NWS forecast smartphone app. I think we definitely need to consider that. One insight I like to point out, you can see all the COA or Harvard County Chinese School or API or other Chinese school, they are really now the LEP community we really want to go. But we have to start it from something is achievable. We want to spread those information to those community. Let's say COA, they definitely know English pretty well. From them, we want to spread the word to whole, Chinese American communities, whatever the language level, they know that one. Then we hope from this way we get more feedback from them. We want to talk with more people, no matter where their English levels are. We finally want to reach to the LEP community. So this outreach will never be a one and done deal. We want to continue this, event outreach as long as possible. Whenever we have a new service be available, new features available, we'll try to go to the more those, Chinese American, they have more traditional holidays here. We'll go to those celebration events and get more communities, no matter they are LEP or not. We want to have more people knowing that. Next slide, please.
All right, so you guys listening to us, thank you so much for participating and listening to our talk today. But I have a couple other things. So if you can please spread the word about our translation services to your family and friends and anyone else in the Asian communities, go to our website, take our survey. It's on that feedback button at the top of the navigation on our page. We'd really appreciate it. Tell us what sucks on the website. Tell us if our translations are bad. We'd love to know to continue to improve those. Any general feedback you have can go to the nws.translate@noaa.gov email. Or if you work for Weather Service, and if you don't, consider joining our AI translation team. Volunteer to translate, like the folks you see here. We're also open to collaborating with the general public and taking translations from you all if you would like to volunteer with us. I can't pay you, sorry. But I have other needs besides translation. If you have skills in graphic design, or you would like to try your hand at outreach information, you want to create and customize outreach materials for your culture, your heritage, from your family. When you make things, have your grandparents in mind or your parents in mind that maybe don't speak English, and you come from that culture and you want to make sure you have your family prepared for any kind of weather and weather that happens in your area. Help us out. Come join the team. We'd love to have you. If you're really great at programming or you have GIS experience, we'd love your help there too. As you saw, I analyze census data all the time, and I need GIS for that. So I'm gonna need some more help. And then let's see, we got the end here. Thank you so much again. There's a QR code to our website, NWS translate page, weather.gov/translate. Check it out. And again, take the survey and let us know what you think. Let's see, we've got just under 10 minutes for questions. Let's see what's in the chat here. All right.
Hi, Monica. This is Katie, and we have a ton of questions. I know we're not going to get to them all, so I am going to just pop them up on the screen for everyone to see. Our very first one that came in early on was, can you share again the name of the AI translator, please?
Okay, so the contractor that we're partnering with for the AI translations is Lilt, L-I-L-T. You can look them up at lilt.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Our next question was, is the translation a word-for-word equivalent translation?
It is not. We are trying our best to translate meaning.
Great. Next question, is the translation service available for NOAA to use? I'm assuming NOAA wide is the question. Can it be accessed through a web API or another format?
So right now we're doing weather service content because that's what our contract's for. But other people in NOAA, send me an email to those email addresses I had on the last slide earlier, monica.bozeman@noaa.gov or nws.translate@noaa.gov, and we can have a conversation about that.
Awesome. Ripping through these questions. Okay, next question. Can you train the AI product to do transcreation, translating an idea or concept not literally?
So that's an interesting question. I've been to a couple of translation conferences. I kind of sort of understand transcreation, but I don't fully comprehend how that works. So that's why we're partnering with Lilt and the other folks in the translation enterprise. So they advise us how to do things. They do have a generative AI offering. We just don't use it right now because we're translating text from things that we have from English. Not saying we won't explore it, but at the moment we do not use generative AI.
Awesome. So this one's going to be a bigger question. What are the expectations for technical staff, such as many of yourselves, to support translation for your office? Are you the primary translators, only reviewers, and does the Weather Service hire specifically for language skills? Those are lots of questions together.
That's a great question, though. So for technical staff, we try and make it really easy on all our forecast offices. So we have a position called an ITO, an IT officer. We have tried to make everything where they just have to do about maybe 45 minutes to an hour's worth of work to install our code on their system. We are trying to get towards generating all of the translations from a cloud system so we can centralize all of that. So then there's no burden on the local office. As far as translators, Nhan is our only Vietnamese translator. Jane was our only Samoan translator. We've added a couple more from her office for Samoan. And then we have just a handful of Chinese translators. So we see the value in having weather service, meteorologists, hydrologists with all that technical background, and partnering with the lilt translators. So that way we get those nuanced meanings of the way we say things, as I mentioned earlier. But sometimes, yes, it'll be just one person helping to translate or spot checking a translation. Folks on the rest of the call, if you want to chime in on that one too, if you want to, feel free.
I want to add a little bit. I think for the translation part, I do think it's beneficial to have a meteorology background, because myself as oceanographer, sometimes some certain terminology, I think the meteorologist will know a little bit better, like what in Chinese languages should be. That being said, as Monica said, we do need people who do outreach, we need people with GIS background. So there's a lot of places you can fill if you're interested. So definitely reach out to us.
Awesome. We only have a couple minutes, so I'm just going to grab a few more. How will you, I'm assuming this is in the works, will you tackle Arabic, noting text is read from right to left versus left to right?
Right. We've thought about that because Arabic's on our list. So with the web page display, the translation's on the left now, the English is on the right. When we get to Arabic, we're going to flip that because we know that that's how they read that from the other direction. So my webmaster is very talented. So he tells me he's got things covered for that when we do get to Arabic.
Wonderful. Question. What is, once this model is trained, what prevents all Weather Service offices from adapting this, or what resources would be required?
Sure. So this is a fun question. So, we're trying to keep training it so that way it gets to a point where it doesn't need so much hand holding necessarily, but we do see the value in the human in the loop part for accuracy, obviously those nuanced things. So as we do this, as I mentioned, every office should be able to have the ability to translate into Spanish. And then there's some technical things involved, and not everyone across the entire country necessarily is going to need like Vietnamese or Chinese, for example. So we're deploying that at strategic places based off of the census data or data that we hear from with our partners and things. So not every office may have every language. So resources, hopefully, like I said, we're trying to get towards a cloud instance. And then that way it reduces some of that technical burden. We can centralize everything and we can run efficiently and just have one place for all that information. And then we can scale a little bit easier and faster.
Thank you so much, Monica. And I just want to thank everyone here. We do have more questions because this is such an interesting topic, but we are out of time. So I just want to assure everyone on the line that your questions are being recorded, and I will be passing them all off to our panelists today, and they will be answering you offline via email. But I want to thank everyone for joining us today, speakers on this excellent topic, and the AAPI ERG and their speaker series for partnering with us in the library. This was such an amazing topic to listen into. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.